I love the way the First Gen Lounge makes me feel.
Because it creates a space where I belong, where we're able to create community.
The fact that it's a community.
It's a safe place.
It also gives me a place to understand different perspectives.
The stories of these individuals prescribe transformational perspective.
I receive encouragement, enlightenment, empowerment.
And also serve as a catalyst to just keep going.
Where we're able to be our true selves.
I'm allowed to be an unapologetic first gen.
And above all else, tell our story.
And every episode is unique.
I love it.
I'm your host, Dr. Eve, and I'd like to welcome you to the First Gen Lounge. Well, hello, wherever you are in the world, and welcome back to another week of the First Gen Lounge. We're really excited, as I always am, aren't I? I love being here, though. I love being here. But we have a really amazing guest today. All the guests who come on, y'all know are amazing because the stories are so powerful, and what we'll learn from all of them is really amazing. But this one, I'm really excited to tell y'all about. Well, actually, he's going to tell you about. I have James Stukes today from Sumter, South Carolina. Hey, James.
Hey, Dr. Eve, how are you today?
I am well, and I am glad. Look, we met somewhere on the internet. I don't even know where we started with it, but we have definitely become, great, I want to say, compadres in education. And James, you're really awesome. You're really awesome, very supportive, and does really amazing work. But James, tell the people who you are and how you are and all that good stuff.
Oh, wow. Okay. My name is James Stukes. I am from Sumter, South Carolina. I am a father. I'm a husband. I am a first-gen graduate. All the above. I'm a man of black and old gold, A5A, representing. And I currently work in higher ed and work primarily with marginalized groups, first generation specifically.
Love that. Love that. So, you Greek. Let's go for that. Cool. And that's funny, y'all, because my husband is an alpha named James, which we just talked about. So it's kind of like, when I saw this, I was like, wait a minute. So this is really cool, actually. Really, really cool. And so first generation college student, but something about your story, we're going to rewind for a little bit, is that you were non-traditional as well, right?
Yes, I was.
Yeah, what happened? You graduated from school and didn't go immediately. Tell us that part of your story. I'd love to dig in.
Well, grew up in a household that was working class. My father was a carpenter. He died earlier before I was able to go to high school. And my mom, she was working class as well. So me going into the working class was almost, that path was kind of laid out. The push to go to college wasn't necessarily there. And I was fine with that. So after high school, I, immediately went into the working class. I worked at a tool manufacturer for 5 years and was a brick mason and a brick laborer on a construction sites for a couple years after that as well, before even pursuing or even applying to a 4-year college.
And what's really interesting, because you sat out of school for how long?
Oh, wow. You got me doing math this morning. Let me see.
Look, it's too early.
7 years.
7 years. That's really, and you would think, you hear 7 years and some people like at the 7-year mark, thinking like later on, I'm just not going to do it, or, maybe I'll just do something else and it's too late. But for you were like, no, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
So much that something is happening this fall. What's that?
This fall, I'm hopefully, knock on wood, praises up, be graduating, finishing my doctoral program as a educational leadership policy and analysis, with my topic being Black first generation college students who have attended PWIs and their experiences with imposter syndrome and code switching. So,
that's gonna be good. I can't wait to read that. It's gonna be public, right? So yeah, you can't hide that one, buddy. Can't hide that one. But yeah, so interesting. Stayed out of school for 7 years, went back to school, and didn't just go back to school, kept going to school. Like, I'm gonna go all the way. And even now, about to finish a doctorate, a husband, a dad, you are a leader. Like, wow. So your life, from thinking about it, from being a machine operator for a tool manufacturing company to all of this, right? The journey there, to me, that's of hope, because some people just kind of get lost by the wayside and they kind of be like, well, this just is what it is. There's nothing more for me. So just curious to know, though, for you, thinking about, again, being an adult and being even non-traditional when you went back to school and now navigating, what was your motivation?
And at first I didn't have any motivation. My sister, who went to college before I did, and she was a teacher. She started out as a teacher. And even when I was working at the tool manufacturing facility, I was making more money than she was with a college degree. So I definitely, and she probably get mad if I told you this, I would give her money, to help her. So, definitely didn't see the need to go to college if I was, doing pretty well, especially at a young age. But I've always had a love for academics, not necessarily STEM, but definitely had a love for history and sociology and getting to know different, different communities, et cetera. So that passion and love was always there. And the opportunity arose for me to apply to a four-year institution, and I knocked it down several times, and then I decided just to take a chance. I think a part of it was, I'm sorry you aggravate me, I'll apply. And this was my mindset. I will apply, and if I don't get in, don't bother me anymore. And I was sure I wasn't going to get in. So that's the only reason I made that. I put that out there. I knew I wasn't going to get in. And even when I got the acceptance letter, I still didn't know how to interpret it. I was like, what? Am I accepted or am I not? And, found out I was accepted. And even still, there was some hesitation. But at the time, my girlfriend, fiance then, my wife now, we had a child. So I knew I wanted my oldest child to go to college. And I figured the best way to get him to go to college was not just to tell him, but to show him. So that was part of my main motivation to, agreeing, telling myself that I can do this and to give it a shot. What do I have to lose? So it was definitely difficult. I did quit my job, where I was making pretty good money, and that was definitely hard. Being unemployed, had to take all that into consideration. So, but it all, worked out for the best. So.
How you doing? So thinking about that, you said, you left that money because it's like, thinking about it, like, you got good money.
Man.
A lot of people, they got to make this money,
Mm-hmm.
What was that for you to transition to going to school, and how were you able to even just kind of survive that time and to make the most of it, considering that you were no longer as financially stable as you were once before?
Well, I had a couple months to kind of prepare. So, in that time, I paid off my vehicle. I had a car payment, so I paid off my vehicle. I didn't have a whole lot of debt, so that was fine. But nonetheless, it was still difficult not to be able to get a paycheck every week. Because back then, I was getting paid every week. So when I transitioned, to Tennessee, where I attended for my bachelor's degree, and granted, I attended this university was almost sight unseen. I've seen the campus from the street, but actually never really, did a college tour or anything like that. So it was definitely difficult the first couple months. That pride, I had a strong sense of pride and not getting a paycheck. So it was actually kind of funny. I'm an introvert. So I started in fall of 2005, August. In October, I couldn't take it anymore. So I applied for a job at a call center. And that was probably the worst experience I've had in, work-wise, just calling people and answering the phones and, trying to get them to buy. I think at the time it was boats, at that time I've never even ridden on a boat before. So I'm trying to sell a boat to people. And I lasted 2 weeks. And I couldn't take it, and I left that. But I did get a paycheck. I got paid for 2 weeks, so I felt a little bit. So it kind of took some of the edge off.
Look, that was a good thing. And look, at the very least, you had a little something going on. That's cool. So then thinking that you go from, again, making this good money to going to school to where now it's time for you to choose a career. Mm-hmm. How do you navigate that? How did you navigate just figuring out, like, where am I going to go? What am I going to do? And what's even good money now? What was that like? Because I'm pretty sure that was quite the venture, especially with you having landed in education.
Like I said, I always had a love for history. So even when, at orientation, I didn't want to go in as undecided. So it was between history and psychology. So I chose history and said, okay, I want to be a history teacher. And that, in high school, my history teacher, that class was, just a delight to go to.
Yeah, I had a great history teacher too.
Yeah, it was like, I passed I made A's on all the tests with little effort, just because the information just kind of came natural. So I said, I want to do that. I want to be that for the next generation. So I'm going to be a history teacher. And granted, I heard about, teachers don't make a lot of money, all that was kind of played a role. But, I wanted to be in a career that would be impactful, so to speak. So, yeah, all that just kind of culminated. And, just, imagining myself being in front of a class, in front of young minds, and being able to shape and mold those minds was something that I kind of held to myself that I could do this. So
I think that's really important to note, because we think about what our lives look like, and we think about things, especially like our careers, and to make good money or to do something meaningful. And it sounds to me like something meaningful meant more to you, because the money would come. Now, what it would look like, probably not the same, but knowing that you're getting up in the morning and appreciating and enjoying what you're doing makes a difference.
Yes, most definitely. I was fortunate enough to, after I quit the call center in October, that early spring, I was presented with the opportunity on campus to work federal work study, and not having any idea what federal work study was, but I knew it was a paycheck. So I immediately jumped on it. And the office I worked in on campus was office geared towards working with adult learners. So students that came in that office were primarily 25 and up, and were parents or working full time. So that was me. So I felt comfortable in that role and in that job, and I worked in that office throughout the rest of my undergraduate career, and eventually was able to get hired on contract. I worked federal work study that first spring semester, but by the summer I was on contract with the college as an employee, and I was able to get my out-of-state tuition fees waived, and that was great. So everything just kind of came.
That's really cool. So everything kind of came, but it's also you positioning yourself as well.
Yes, most definitely.
So just thinking about your path now, and just, again, navigating this thing called adulthood, figuring things out, as a first generation college graduate, what are some of the things that you've learned or you've had to navigate that have been challenging, but you've taken a big lesson from it?
I would definitely say I've had to push myself, and being first gen, I didn't know I was first gen until grad school, when I was pursuing my master's degree, and the terminology came up, and all before, my older sister, she went to college, and so I assumed that I wasn't first gen. She went, so I'm not the first in the family, but I got to learn more about the literature and realize, okay, I am first gen, because I always identified myself as being an adult learner. That was my identity. So I was actually happy to kind of be able to associate that identity with some of the things I had experienced while in undergrad. I was able to kind of put a label to it. Okay, so I'm first gen, and I experienced a lot of these, I won't say hiccups, but barriers to the social barriers, the imposter syndrome, and a plethora of other things that initially I internalized as being something being wrong with me. But I was able to add context to it, and I was able to push myself and rise above all that, so to speak.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. And then thinking of it too from like being a perspective of a Black man, because I love it, especially when I have Black men on the show, because of those barriers, right? Those challenges, the identity, the race, the gender thing. Did you have any mentors or anybody that you were able to go to and talk to for advice, or to just kind of figure out this road, or were you really just kind of solo dolo?
I was kind of solo dolo, and that was all my fault, because I really, growing up, seeking help was something that was sort of frowned upon. And even now as an adult, that's seeking help is not my first go-to. I do know how to seek help now, but definitely in undergrad, I was able to find several mentors, and many of those mentors were women of all colors, and all races. Being where I was in Tennessee, there wasn't a whole lot of Black males on campus. So women played a huge role in mentoring and encouraging and motivating me to the point where I am now.
That's really interesting. And do you feel like you kind of just gravitated toward them, or did they kind of pull you and like, come here, boy?
I did have one, I remember her name, Dr. Whitson. She was a criminal justice professor. Now, she and I did not click at first. And eventually, she and I had this great relationship, and she was that person, like, come here, boy. And I needed that, even in my older age, adult age, I found that I still needed that. So she was a great motivator, great encourager, and just a great example for me to follow. So yeah, Dr. Whitson was definitely influential in that role, but other folks as well in regards. And the mentoring kind of came not in a broad sense. Like one mentor was able to propel me and think about my writing skills and to promote and push those and increase that.
Mm-hmm.
So that, it worked in that different pocket. And even when I was taking some of my classes, education classes were at night, I had a mentor who was also a mentor, but also served as a babysitter, I had a night class. So,
Wow.
Yeah. So it was, definitely one thing I will always tell students, even students I work with today, no one does it alone. Nobody does it alone.
Absolutely. So thinking about, again, your path now and being a professional, what are some of the things that you're doing to continue to develop yourself?
I am trying to, especially in the age of remote learning and COVID-19, I've been trying to retool and reinvent myself in regards to getting more proficient in social media. I'm not a huge social media guy, but I do run several social media accounts in my current role. So I will increase my proficiency in that and meeting folks like you and other folks who are in this field and doing this work in regards to the first gen success. Attending conferences. I even started watching a few sign language videos on YouTube to try to want to become bilingual. So yeah, so it's broad, like the sky's the limit. Now a lot of my work deals with anti-racism. So, that educational piece, for me, even just being as a Black male, there are things I still need to learn and things I am learning. So we can all, try to create a anti-racism climate in country so everyone can feel welcome and included.
That's some hard work to do, would you say?
Most definitely. I have aha moments all the time. I'm human. I may make a mistake, so I'm open to that. I'll be teaching a class of first-year students come this fall. So, that's always exciting. It puts me back in the classroom. But, it's also, I learn from them as they learn from me.
Absolutely. And then something that you touched on is, again, just being a student and having students, but also being that you are a graduate student yourself. What are some of the things that you would suggest to someone who's currently pursuing a master's or a doctorate themselves in terms of like going to school or just thinking about getting through it and even developing research?
I would definitely say the sky's the limit. I know for myself, I used to put limitations on what I could do and what I could achieve. And once I was able to eliminate that mindset and those barriers, mental barriers that I put in place, I realized that sky's the limit. A lot of things that I have done in my life were nevers. And so I've learned to never say never because all my nevers are now I'm living in my nevers. So it's kind of, so to speak. So I would tell students it's definitely be challenging and hard at times. Find a support system, whether that be family or friends or, folks on campus or other students. We all need a push every now and then. We all need some encouragement.
Absolutely love that. Do you have a favorite book that you're reading or anything that you enjoy, digging into?
Currently, unfortunately not. I was telling one of my colleagues, I said, because she was explaining to me that she was reading this book. And I said, I wish I had the time where I could read leisurely. And she was like, no, all you're reading is for your dissertation. Like you can.
Right.
I don't currently. There are some books I want to read. I have a bunch of books in my office, and a lot of times I give them to students if they see them. And the last book I remember reading fully was the late Representative John Lewis's book, Cross That Bridge, and Hill Harper's The Letter to a Young Brother.
That's a good one.
Yeah, the New Jim Crow, I finished that one not too long ago. I'm sitting in my office now at home, and I'm looking at the Free Centoria book that I haven't read, Centoria Brown, and Stamped from the Beginning. I have that book I haven't read. So leisure reading, I definitely hope to get back into that early 2021.
You said you was going to accept the 2020 goal.
yeah, 2020.
But what you said is just don't let it go. Just get to it later.
Ain't no need to fool myself up. I'm just like, 2021, because most of my reading now is, scholarly articles and, peer-reviewed articles. And so, that, and all types of other literature. But good reading, increases my knowledge on these subjects and these different variables. But leisure reading, we're going to pray for 2021.
Then we're going to have to. And then real quick, something I'm curious to know. What is it that actually made you want to go ahead and do research on first-gen low-income students? Because, like, why of all the things that stood out to you, was this the thing for you?
That's a good question. I'll say I'm going back to pursuing my master's degree. When I graduated, when I said I would never go to school and earn a bachelor's degree, I think that was something, can't remember if it was verbally or just something in my conscience that I said. So, eventually did that. But I do remember verbally
How
saying,
ironic.
Exactly. And I do remember verbally saying, I think someone mentioned graduate school. And I was like, well, I'm going to be a teacher. I don't need a master's degree. I'm never going to graduate school to get a master's degree. And after a couple of years of teaching, I realized I think my heart was in higher ed. So, and I knew to get in higher ed, I needed a master's. So I did go back and get my master's. So that was another never that I had to chalk to the game. And then my doctorate degree, that one, I didn't feel like I need to pursue a doctorate degree. And I had a couple mentors, those mentors, man. They kept saying, like, keep going, don't stop. If you stop, you may never do it. You may never go back. And these are folks that already had their PhDs and doctorate degrees. So,
Right.
So, kept going. And the more I looked at my professional career, the more I realized that I have been working with first-gen students coming from low-income families, students of color. I've been working with those students ever since I left Sumter, South Carolina. And given that I, too, myself identified with many of those, I threw myself into the research, and especially in grad school when I learned I was first-gen, I wanted to learn more about this aggregation, and not necessarily the challenges, more about the strengths and the assets that first-gen students bring to campuses and their experiences and that uniqueness. So yeah, the more I learned about first-gen students, the more I got compelled to write. And so it's kind of summed it up. And actually, I kind of dip back and look back at my experiences as an undergrad. Okay, what were some challenges that I experienced? So I kind of threw, it was almost like a pot. I was in the kitchen cooking. I said, put a little dabble of this in there. And put a little dabble of that in there. And then,
Sound about right?
Yeah.
South Carolina?
yeah. And I do like to cook. And I was sprinkling and, so yeah, that's how it all kind of came about. But and even now, that those are the students that I work with. Those are students I do a lot of intrusive advising, and building that trust and relationships with students is very important to me. In regards to student success, I look at it from a holistic point of view.
Yes.
Not just academics. For a student to be totally successful, you have to go beyond academics, the social aspect, sense of belonging, all these different variables that go into, making the college experience what it is. So
absolutely, because you lived it firsthand.
I did. I had a great undergrad experience, and and if I can help someone else have a great experience, that's what I want to do.
Absolutely, I've been there. Love it. One of the things I loved absolutely the most about higher education is just being able to work with students and see them flourish, and to feel like even if it was one thing, one program, one paper, anything that I did, if it was just one thing to have made a difference, then it was all worth it.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. I do remember, like, in times in undergrad, especially freshman year, sophomore year, I kind of hid. I went to class, I went to work, and I went home. I had a triangle. I wasn't involved socially at all. And then my junior year, beginning of my junior year, I realized that something was missing. I was doing okay academically, but something was missing. And once I made a shift, I was able to have a true college experience. And, and for me being, almost, late 20s, almost 30, to be able to have that experience, I'm deeply grateful for, folks that have helped me along the way and continue to push me during that time. So.
Absolutely. So if there is, look, my favorite question of the hour is that one piece of advice, that one thought, word of wisdom that you would leave us with to remember you by for the rest of our lives, what would that be?
Never say never. You can do it. Believe in yourself.
I love that. Oh, I love being inspired. And so, never say never. That's great. Well, you have been awesome to have here today, James. Thank you for your time, for your wisdom, for your story, for, showing up and being the example, and for living your truth, and for honoring all the things that make you who and what you are. I appreciate it. I do. So wishing you the best of luck in all that lies ahead.
I thank you very much. I appreciate, you having this platform and this space for folks like myself and other first-gen students. Really appreciate the work that you're doing and wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.